Are we getting started?
Whenever you're
Is
ready,
that
Chairman.
you?
Okay. All right, we will call this meeting of the Lower McConchy Township Planning Commission to order. First things, we'll start with approval of the minutes on your agenda. Anyone want to make an approval? of minutes?
Make a approval to approve the minutes of October 8th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Aye.
Oh, I have a second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right, motion carries. And I should mention, just for the record, all members are present today. So we'll jump right into old business. This was on our agenda last week or last meeting, and that is the Spring Creek Estates 2022 modification. So if members of our organization would like to come forward. And for the record, if you want to introduce yourself, just so that we have that recorded.
Sure. I'm Alan Fornwalt with Keystone Consulting Engineers.
I'm Ben Mervin with Keystone Consulting Engineers.
Mariano, one of the members of the project.
Okay, great. If you, I guess, actually, Brian, do you want to give us a little overview on
Sure.
where we're at on this? That might be the best starting point.
And I don't recall which of the planning commission members were around when the first plan was approved. But the previous approval included 2 townhouse units on the parcel. Applicant is looking to add a 3rd townhouse building. Very similar driveway circulation pattern. They're adding some parking spaces and this 3rd unit, extremely straightforward in that regard. There's some minor changes to the stormwater management system, but all of the, I'll call planning issues in terms of frontage improvements, pedestrian walkways, things like that, that's all staying the same as it was on the previous approval. So it's in because they are adding another building. We have a review. Bear with me. We have a review out. And I would assume that Alan, by the way, Alan was not the engineer on the previous plans. He's been brought in. In fairness to Alan, I have not had a chance to talk to him about the current plan, nor my review, which is dated September 9th. I believe it's pretty straightforward, but in fairness to Alan, I hadn't had a chance to talk to him to determine if there are any issues in the letter that need to be discussed. And if not, there's not, like I said, there's not a whole lot of planning going on here. So unless the planning commission members have any specific questions, this is fairly straightforward. Alan, is this pretty much will comply with my letter and with Vince's?
Yeah, so yeah, the letters, I've gone through the letters as you stated. I'm taking over the project from the engineering standpoint. And it's fairly straightforward. I've reviewed that. We're going to be addressing those comments moving forward.
Okay. And obviously give me a buzz if something needs clarification, but
All right, are there any comments that you wanted to add to the project?
No, not really. Brian pretty well covered it. It's just the building number 3 there, kind of nestled in the space that was left. And we do have to get a revision to the NPDS permit. So that's going to be a whole other, approval process outside the township. So.
For the members, how many people were on when we first talked about this in 2002? 15? No.
I mean,
Okay,
22, yeah, that would.
yeah, 22,
Yeah.
but no one else has. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, has everyone had a chance to review some things? It's a minor change as was explained. But I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. We do have a motion that was prepared. Has everyone read through that? And does someone want to make a motion to move that forward?
Question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wasn't part of the original presentation when he came in front of the board. Is the parking it's not part of the houses, is that like communal?
So it counts as there's a garage in each one of the units, and then you park on the driveway. And then there's also communal kind of in the center of the square. call it.
Did that increase with the additional houses?
So
Well, there's a slight increase in
don't- there's-
impervious because they did increase the number of parking spaces provided.
But Ryan, are you asking, are there enough parking spaces?
Yeah.
I think actually we're overparked by one. Is that right?
Yeah, it meets the requirements for zoning parking.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Are there any other questions? That was a good one there. All right, so we have a motion that's been drafted. Does anyone want to move that forward?
So I make a motion to approve the Spring Creek Estates 2023 modification preliminary final land development application. Make a motion to approve it.
All right, is
in its
there,
entirety, based on the 5 conditions listed in the document.
and just for clarification, you do have this document, correct?
sorry, I
It-
do. have to-
You do have that, the document, correct? You've seen what the motion is?
The drafts of the motions are posted
Yeah,
in
they
the
should be in
back.
the back.
I don't think I've seen the draft of the motion.
Okay,
I have to.
so if you want to take a look at it, just make sure that there's
Yeah, I'll just.
no questions there. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We'll just hang tight for a moment. I was unaware that you didn't see it, but when I saw you shuffling your papers, I didn't see it in there, so.
Wes, if you don't mind, just to throw out something that we've discussed amongst staff. We would prefer that plans get revised and resubmitted prior to getting on a board agenda.
Mhm.
My letter is not very long. And we do recognize that they've applied, I
Yeah.
believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, you did apply for minor modification for the MPDES permit, yes?
Yes,
So we certainly are not going to hold them up until they get that, but I just feel like I'd be more comfortable if we got a revised set of plans before and a review before getting on a board agenda. That's all. I just wanted to throw that out there as opposed to rolling into the next board meeting.
Correct, yes, yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
yeah, no, I'm on board with that to try to address, most of the comments on here.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fairness to you, you're really kind of new to this project. So certainly we can kick around whatever concerns or comments or questions you have.
So I am in receipt of this now and we don't have any objections.
Okay, great. So we're still in discussion. Are there any other comments, questions? All right. So it's been properly seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none. Those abstaining, hearing none. Motion carries. All right,
Thank you.
So, yes. All right, and then the next item on the agenda, I think will be a little more extensive. That's the 4103 Indian Creek Road, Harnt Preserve sketch plan. Good evening. Good evening. So if you'll introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Chris Canavan. I am the president of WB Homes, and we are the owners of the subject tract under the development entity known as Walnut Creek Acquisitions LP. We purchased the property over the summertime from the previous owners. The application before you today is for the 13-acre site. It's, as I think most of you know, located between Olympic Drive and Overlook Drive off of Indian Creek Road. We have proposed 26 new single-family building lots in accordance with the zoning ordinance. There are 3 other parcels or new lots to be created. They would all be open space / stormwater management lots. 2 of them are 3/4 of an acre to an acre in size. And then there is a strip of ground that is between the proposed roadway and the backs of the houses on Overlook. That's really a result of making sure the center line road of our proposed driveway lines up with the Fields at Indian Creek development in Upper Milford Township across the street. What that stretch of ground will also allow us to do is, when we present the land development plan, there will be an extensive landscaping buffer proposed within that area to help buffer the rear yards of those homes that are adjacent to the development and don't have a rear yard of our development backing up to it. The project is in conformance, I believe, with your zoning ordinance, the S residential zoning district. We are building, just for reference point, within this area, just if you want to see the quality of the product and what we build, we currently have a project under construction on Main Road West in Upper Milford Township called the Estates at Maple Ridge. We are building a combination of both front entry and side entry garage product there that would be similar to the size and quality of the home that we would build in this development. In addition, we have a project that the model homes under construction in the borough of Coopersburg that is off of State Street. It's the last piece of property in Coopersburg before going into Upper Saucon Township called Ashford Preserve. I'd welcome any of you to visit either of those to see the nature and quality of the product and work that we do. So with that, I'd be happy to walk through. We've received both review letters from Mr. McAdams and from your zoning officer to walk through some of those items. Most of the items are items that are really notification of what we would need to do as we go through the land development process. But there were a few items within them that I think are worth talking about with regards to roadway improvements on Indian Creek Road, sidewalk, and pedestrian access interconnectivity.
I think you starting with a good overview. I mean, you've already given us a little one there, but kind of walking through it is the best way. I have a feeling that as you start to do that, it'll build some questions, and
Perfect.
that's the best part of this meeting, is to get through those questions.
Absolutely. And I would note, just from an ownership standpoint, just so there's no question on that, the open space, we are looking at dedicating the roadways to, or offering them for dedication. Should they take them, that'll be the choice of the board. We would propose that the 3 open space lots and all the stormwater facilities would be owned and maintained by a homeowners association that would, all the lots would be members of. And as we work our way through the plan, we would also propose that a good bulk of the sidewalk that is along Olympic Drive, after you get behind, but once you're off of the back of lot 19, and as you work your way out to Indian Creek Road, then along the whole frontage of Indian Creek Road, that sidewalk would all be maintained by the homeowners association as well, just so that it would be cleared and appropriate maintained during weather conditions, et cetera, since it's not really accessible to any of the building lots that are associated with them. So I think starting with that, I'll just go in order. I think Brian's letter lays out some of the discussion items best. If you don't mind, I'll work my way
That'd be
down
perfect.
through that. And then if there's other discussion items, we can go from there. I think I addressed number 1 with the homeowners association. Number 2 was we would propose public dedication of the roads, and they will be built to the public standards requirement of the ordinance. Number 3, our question really has to do, if you look along Indian Creek Road, it is not there's a significant improvement that would be required if we did it per the ordinance. That is not how Indian Creek Road has been improved as other developments have occurred. So we wanted to make sure that we were only improving it within the appropriate means. So it looked, in my mind, so it looked appropriate with the other developments that are in that area, but provided safe travel as well. I think that what Brian has suggested, maybe a 2 to 4 foot shoulder along the roadway would be a good idea, and then prepare appropriate stormwater would be a good way to do that, then taper it as we get to the entrance. What I would ask is, we're showing a normal sidewalk along that roadway. Brian has suggested, I think, a 6 foot bike trail, which I think would be appropriate within that area. And then we would transition back to sidewalks when we get to the roadways. I just was curious as to the board's, the planning commission's feedback on both the widening and then the walking trail / sidewalk.
So on that particular item, so these the 2 roads, the one that goes into Indian Creek, the neighborhood directly across from it, and then yours. So you're saying that the road width would basically be equal to what it is on the other side. Those are the same.
Correct. And we would tie it into the widening that's occurred between what would be our entrance and overlook as well. So it would be a consistent road profile.
That width would travel the entire way, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, when we looked at this, Wes, it's kind of, I'll say uneven almost, how the different developments along Indian Creek
Yeah.
have evolved. So my comment was maybe a little wishy-washy, but I think at a minimum, we'll wind up, we would prefer a shoulder.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
It's just that it's kind of like some places it's 4, some places it's 2. I kind of want to have something that is consistent.
Yeah.
And with possibly with a little bit of a, not an official decel lane,
Right.
but a little bit of a wider section there that would put the curb returns back far enough in case full widening ever happened, right? And then just give a little bit more room for cars to use turning in so they could scooch out of the travel lane. And with that in mind, there's not a whole lot of curbing out on Indian Creek Road. So that's another thing
Yeah.
that we're thinking, well, is it really entirely necessary? We ran into something similar, if you guys recall, on 3500 Brookside Road. We pushed hard for curb because we thought it was better for the stormwater management. Indian Creek is a PennDOT road. So is Brookside Road. PennDOT said, we will not issue an HOP if you're going to have curb, take it out.
Yeah.
So we're kind of trying to be proactive,
Proactive.
for lack of a better term, with this and say, look, let's just have paved shoulder somewhere around 2 to 4 feet so that it's a consistent look, I'll call it, across the frontage. And then since there are existing storm sewer inlets in here in different locations, as WB proceeds with the design, get a better sense for what exactly is that width going to be, because we don't want to create like a sawtooth condition along the frontage, but we'll work it out. Our feeling was generally shoulder will be good enough, so to speak. It's all consistent with what else has gone on Indian Creek Road. There's some bituminous curb in Indian Creek. I don't really like bituminous curb. It tends to get chewed up pretty bad by trucks and snowplows and whatnot. I think I'm better off without it, frankly. And I think considering that PennDOT does push more now for swale flow adjacent to the roads, it would help kind of help things go through PennDOT a little sooner, quicker. And it allows for us to have, with the frontage path, the thought was if it's a 6-foot pedestrian macadam path, dependent on features, grading and whatnot, we may be able to have it meander a little bit, kind of maybe look a little nicer and just, instead of just a straight run, gives us a little more flexibility on the township side. But what Mr. Canavan is looking for is basically direction as to how he's going to get his engineers going.
And in fairness, I really don't have a preference. I do think, in my own experience doing this, I do think doing a meandering macadam path, landscaped appropriately, set a little further back off the road would be the appropriate look along that roadway from an attractiveness standpoint. And then that would allow us to do that 2 to 4 foot shoulder, an appropriate graded swale that can be maintained well, and then landscape and set that trail. That would work well. And we'll have the homeowners association keep all that landscaping maintained. So it's a very consistent frontage along that. Even if it falls onto those lots, we can create the necessary controlled facilities for the association to keep a very consistent look then along that rear, particularly since those are reverse frontage lots that sit there. It'd be nice to have a berm and landscaping that we can put through there with the trail as a separation.
Where would the trail be? Sorry, I know you said it. Repeat it again.
Instead of the sidewalk right along the edge of roadway, the trail would set back probably more about the right of way line.
On this side along Olympic here?
No,
Both. It's on a.
'Cause there's-
And it turns in.
yeah,
Okay.
I would probably
Is it gonna-
propose to do sidewalk on Olympic, unless you thought differently. I mean, I would be okay with doing sidewalk because that would be a consistent look on either side of the street. This would really be the trail along Indian Creek.
Cause I'm looking at Google Maps.
Yep.
It helps me visualize.
Hey, Chris,
But-
Chris, I do have yours. I
Oh, you
can
do
bring
have
them
mine?
up there,
Okay.
yeah.
So if there's Gentlewind Way,
Across, that's what we're lined up with. Yep.
so would there be crosswalks? Is that like, would the trail cross?
That was
Like-
item, what was that item on yours? Yes, that was one of the questions that was asked on number 6 from Mr. McAdams. And yes, I would agree. I think we would do an appropriate pedestrian crossing.
Cause there's walking paths over there. too,
Exactly.
So you'd have safe connection.
Correct.
Okay.
But I think you can even see on the opposite side of the street, there is a meandering pedestrian trail that was created as part of the fields at Indian Creek.
Yeah.
This would sort of mirror that look then.
Yes.
Yes,
Agree with that.
even though it's in a separate township, it would be a nice look.
Connectivity is,
Yeah.
yeah, especially you have, yeah. there's a lot of trails throughout Lower. Montgomery
Yes, there
County,
are.
No,
And they
that's
all kind of connect all the
major
developments.
benefit.
Yep.
And I
Nice.
think we can continue to discuss what we do on Olympic. Vince and I were out there this afternoon. The thought came to mind, like Olympic has curb on both sides. It's improved. It's not, does not need
Yeah.
to be widened. So it's a matter of, do we want to have concrete sidewalk with the grass strip, or similarly to what I think should happen on Indian Creek, do we have a macadam path? What that kind of allows us is, if we need to avoid some trees or root systems or something, it gives us a little bit more flexibility. And I believe the ordinance requires concrete sidewalk to be shoveled and cleared after snowstorms, but macadam path is not required. So it's kind of one of those, it kind of helps a little bit, because I think the reverse frontage lots and the basin lots, that you don't want to burden the homeowners with that. I understand, and I'm happy that the HOA will maintain these. So I think we can continue to talk about whether or not you get concrete sidewalk on Olympic or not, but bottom line is WB is in agreement with either, so.
So let me bring it back to where I started, and I didn't really do a good job of articulating because it kind of went into a few things. So one of my concerns there about the width of it is there is a very awkward, it's been improved over the years, but there's a kind of a weird chicane in the road where it comes up and then it starts to bend there. Line of sight and all of that. I mean, how is that when I've pulled out of it out of Gentle Wind Way and know what it looks like when you'd be pulling out of your
On our development,
there.
as long as we have the landscape, the landscape material, which is on our property, cleared out, it gives you actually, the chicane on our side is better because it's almost a reverse look back. So the
Okay.
road, you have a very clear sight line right up the road of the outgoing travel lane for the oncoming traffic.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was why I wanted to know how much space there is about having a deceleration area and all of that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, we would definitely, for the incoming traffic, want to do, it's not a full deceleration lane, but it would be a widened entrance to allow for the cars to bail out, so to speak.
okay. Okay.
All right.
I think that covers one of the items.
Yeah, and I think that generally got the direction. If the planning commission's generally in favor with what Mr. McAdams has laid
Yeah.
out, we can move that
Yes.
forward.
Any other comments on that specific item?
Very good. Yep. So we talked about trails under 5. Number 6, the crossing to Gentle Wind Way. We will look at that and obviously work on that with our PennDOT permit so that there is pedestrian connectivity.
And I think that to go along with that is, I think that what this has the potential to do is open up. So the trails that already exist there, essentially you can go from where North Street and Cedar Crest Boulevard in Emmaus, right near the high school there. That connectivity starts, there's a trail that starts there, and you could go in either direction. You could make a huge loop just around the existing property, but someone could also end up on your property and eventually end up down into Camp Olympic Park, all on
Absolutely.
trails. So I think getting this right is very important. And I also think establishing a very clear connectivity or crossing area is important so that they're not using multiple spaces to cross, that there's somewhere that you feel safest to cross.
Absolutely.
So good marking, or maybe even flashing lights or something that indicates that like the push button flashing lights.
We'll see what, PennDOT obviously will regulate some of that, but at least good marking and good signage and appropriate, marking would be the good thing on that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So, okay. The other items are like, will complies with regards to the right of way. We have reached out to Lehigh County Authority regarding public sewer or water and the township with the sanitary sewer. With regards to the sections of stormwater pipe that will be out of the right of way before they get to the open space lot, the way we have typically treated those will be the responsibility of the homeowners association. Basically, at least the way we've handled it, and Brian, you can tell me if you want to handle it differently here. Anything that's within the public right of way would be the township responsibility. Once you leave the public right of way, that becomes the homeowners association responsibility. And we use a controlled facility / blanket easement over those lots to allow for the maintenance by the association and the access and monitoring by the township. Acceptable?
Yeah, it is. And we've done, my office has done a lot of stuff with WB, and what Chris is describing is exactly how we've handled it in other places where there's a blanket easement across the site. For instance, behind lots 12, say 6 through 19, there's the common property line where they all have rear yards. There will be a series of inlets and storm piping in there. Rather than encumber the lots with an easement, there will be a blanket easement. The HOA is responsible for ownership and maintenance of the storm sewer on the site. So it'll be written into, I assume, written into
HOA
any
declaration.
HOA docs. The only thing, Chris, that we need to discuss, and it doesn't have to be here, but because the pipes in the street will be township owned and maintained, it's a weird MS4 kind of thing. We may need easements over the pipes and end walls into the basins, but I'm good with a blanket easement over parcel, the entire tract, to handle stormwater management. Obviously would work with Mark's office to make sure they're okay with it, but I have done it before, so I shouldn't have spoken out of turn without asking Mark first, but
Mark, any-
yeah,
We've talked about.
okay. I didn't remember, but yeah.
And then obviously there will be, one other easement we'll have would be over the HOA lot, but it would be to the benefit of the or the sewer authority will be, or the township would be, there's a sanitary sewer line coming out of Road B that would connect into Olympic Drive that, you know, we would obviously give a specific meets and bounds easement. So number 10, fully understand, and that's something we've got into common practice on too, which is to provide the additional impervious in the stormwater calculations for each lot for any and all additions and outside living areas and all the other things that people like to do with regards to that. We go a little bit further even. We make the HOA approve it, and there is a number of precautions we put in our agreements for what has to happen so that not only is the township looking at it from a zoning standpoint, but with regards to, since the basins are the HOAs, they need to be monitoring that as well.
So you're saying that if someone wants to add a larger patio,
Correct.
can have impervious, they'd have to first go through the HOA.
Yep.
Then to the township. For
Correct.
approval. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really never going to exceed the permitted.
It's not going to exceed, and, or, I mean, and at the end of the day, it can exceed the 20%, but then they would need to go get their own stormwater facility on their own lot to do that.
Okay.
In all honesty, with the size of these lots, with what we're building to start with, and then the extra 20%, that's a very reasonable amount of stormwater management for most people when it comes down to it. You've got to do something pretty elaborate to exceed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
People do.
Sure.
The other items are, you know, truck turning templates, fee in lieu of, and things of that nature. And obviously, those are things we'll address as we submit for preliminary plan. But that would be our intention, would be for the recreation, would be a fee in lieu of the open space for use for other facilities.
Okay.
And then we have received Vince's review letter as well, dated November 4th. I think, as I said, most of these are will complies, or evidence will be presented as we come forth with our preliminary plan approval. There are items that I want to go through some of the design standard guidelines so we can make sure we hit that properly, and what are the requirements there. We will have the entrance monument presumably at the entrance across from Gentle Wind. We have a nice design for that, which I'll present as part of that. If Vince, if you don't mind going to the final page, I just wanted to show you, just from an architectural standpoint, this is generally the style product that we are building at the two other developments we have. In looking at your design guidelines, I think we are definitely making the mixture of finishes, the exterior cladding that you're looking for, things of that nature. So we'll continue to look at that and refine that as we bring in our application.
So the neighborhood that you're building in Upper Milford, it started with some larger ones, and I think you've now moved into the second phase where there's some smaller ones.
Correct.
Is it going to have a similar, are we looking at two, or is it?
They're the
Close-
exact same style. The only difference really is on the original ones we started, which were in the back, they're side entry garages, 2-car side entry, but you can get a third car. The second phase that we're doing is same type of product, but it's a front entry garage, just because the lots are a little narrower, a little
Yeah,
smaller, and
yeah.
would accommodate that. But it's the same general size house, et cetera.
Okay, and the size house there is what you're expecting?
Correct. We would be, you know, a development of this, we'd start, the smallest product would probably be in the 28 to 2,900 square foot, and would go up to about a 3,600 square foot within additions and bump outs to the rear.
Yeah, no, they're very nice homes there.
Thank you.
Other,
I do not have any other specific
Okay.
comments to
so
review.
I think the only thing that we didn't, it sounded like there was consensus on the Indian Creek paved path. I don't think I heard any comments specifically. Brian had offered some comments, but I don't think we heard anything from the planning commission on a paved or concrete. You had recommended concrete, a sidewalk along
Only to,
Olympic to match.
To
I mean,
match.
that was how I saw it too, that
Yeah.
it should be a matching, but didn't hear any comments on that. Anyone have an opinion? No. Okay. Simple. Great. I mean, any other comments that your explanations there were obviously pretty concise and
I think was to just hammer home the sidewalk versus path part, they wouldn't need a waiver. It's a matter of, they're going to offer one or the other.
Mhm.
So I guess from the perspective of trying to provide the applicant with feedback about what could be coming your way.
Yeah.
The hope was to flush out things that they might need relief on, or very specific things that the planning commission doesn't want or would want, you know.
Yeah.
I think in this regard, I wouldn't be opposed to it being concrete sidewalk for the sake of being consistent with what's on the
Yeah.
other side of the street. But I think it also wouldn't be the end of the world if it was a continuation of the macadam path that'll be on Indian Creek. I'm good either way, but
Here's
my
what I would
point was
suggest.
they don't need a waiver. So.
right, and what I would suggest is, what I'm hearing right now, and the way we will design it for our preliminary plan, on Indian Creek Road, we're gonna do a meandering macadam path, berming and landscaping, sort of consistent with what's across the street. I'm gonna show sidewalk on Olympic Drive to mirror what's across the street. We will have graded that out, and if someone changes their mind and thinks that it's better to do a macadam, 6-foot macadam path than a 4-foot sidewalk in that, or 5-foot sidewalk in that area, it really doesn't matter from our standpoint, because the grading will already have occurred to allow for that either way. And then, you know, that could be something that if someone changes their mind, but I think right now I'm hearing it seems appropriate with what my summary would be.
sounds good.
Okay.
There was one additional item. So this property was in front of us casually, I'll say at best.
I've heard.
Yes, a number of years ago. And one of the things that stuck out to me at least was at the end of Olympic Drive, that road terminates there.
Yep.
And goes into, essentially it goes into a steep trail into Olympic Park.
Mm-hmm.
But as I mentioned, the connectivity that your trail will be creating there along Indian Creek and eventually into what could be Olympic Park, that is a kind of a missing link. It opens up, I mean, almost 2 miles of walking trails, maybe even, it might even be almost 3 miles of walking trails if you walk the entire perimeter of the property, which I think would be a major asset, one, to the residents that are gonna move in there, but also to the residents in that entire part of Lower Macungie, Annborough, Emmaus, and Upper Milford.
Right.
Have you looked at, do you know the trail that I'm referring to?
I know where the area is. I haven't looked specifically
Okay.
at the trail. I will be happy to go look at that, though.
Yeah,
And what we've done in the past in situations like that is, obviously, we have two things. We have, you know, we're happy to work on those things cooperatively. I would say that right up. We're looking, obviously, there's a financial implication of
of
it.
course.
We have a fee in lieu of that's
Yep.
going to be due. So that could be something we could look at, whatever that fee is, and what would that be a trade-off of actually doing work versus paying that fee in lieu of. And then the other thing, you know, I could even talk about besides the fee in lieu of, we do have a long stretch of sidewalk from Indian Creek Road that would extend back to lot number 26 along lot 27. That is not really serving anybody. That, you know, you could provide sidewalk and connectivity without that section. That has value to it. You know, if that was something that was a waiver, we could then put that value into some of that other trail work as well. So I'm open to those discussions. That obviously doesn't need to be decided now,
Yeah.
but there are ways to look at paying for those things.
Yeah.
And allowing a developer to do it, so it's not a burden on the township.
And that's essentially what I am offering to you. If you want
Right.
to take a look at that, figure out what could be a great solution to that. Having access to that park would be a phenomenal
Right.
asset.
Just so I know right now, if I drive to the end of that street, will I be able to have any access at all, or am I just gonna tumble
Yeah.
down the hill?
Right.
Oh, well, you're gonna park your car there and it's strictly walking.
Right,
Yeah, and then
that's what I mean, but
it's a dirt path.
Okay.
and People that wanted to get to the park decided this is how we're gonna get there.
right,
It seems to get more and more worn down over the years, which shows that it is something that people are using. If you're a really skilled mountain biker, you could do it on a bike, but you're walking your bike for the most part. That's kind of the
Okay.
steepness of it.
we will go out and do some investigations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Be
We-
creative.
We can walk it with you.
Okay, great.
Try to eyeball
Yeah.
But I think it,
possibilities.
I do think it would be just one of those things that
Well,
gives this project a whole nother level.
I'm self-serving. Would be a great opportunity to market that to the homeowners that are
It would.
buying here as well. So,
Yep.
there's a win for everybody.
Yeah,
with
it's,
regards
there's
to
a
that.
lot of wins. I don't see a
Yeah.
negative.
Very good.
Terrific. Anyone else, any comments? Easy meeting.
Very good.
Yes,
I
hopefully
like
we
it.
gave you what you needed.
There we go. Thank you all. Look forward to coming back to see you when we have our land development plan in.
Sounds really good.
Like next week.
Yeah, yeah. Don't
It's
delay.
the holidays.
That's what we're used to, so.
Thank you, Bob.
Have a good night.
That's all we have on the agenda. Anyone else have any other items, questions? No? All right. I guess that means, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
One
Second.
properly seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are officially adjourned 6:36.